behind me, but the Bunton is up in the air. Let me get out of the way so you can see it. The Bunton's up in the air. And the reason why is it's deck day. Everybody needs a deck day. So what is deck day? Deck day would be the day that we sharpen the blades on the deck. Why am I so excited about deck day? This is the very last thing I got to do to make this mower a good mower. An actual good mower. Not just something that's going to be pretty or anything else. Something that's going to cut grass. Something that's actually going to cut grass and cut grass well. And so we're going to need a few tools for this. One thing I pulled out, is the impact. I've actually already tried to pull these off with a breaker bar. They're rough. So you need an air compressor with an impact. You might be able to use an electric impact. You're going to need an impact socket, the proper size for what's holding the blade on. This is a 15/16. You're going to need something to hold the blade in place. Usually people use a 2x4 or something like that. If you have a fancy little bracket I picked up over at the hardware store, this goes around the deck, holds the blade in place. You clamp it down, and we'll go through that. You also are going to need a sharpening kit. I prefer these round wheelie things that go on a drill, and a blade balancer. You can buy a kit like this pretty easily. I actually won't be using that because I have a much nicer one. It's made out of metal. Ding ding. Blade balancer, and I still have a wheel left over from last year that's not completely shot, so we'll use that, and a hammer drill. Now, you don't necessarily need a hammer drill, you do need a drill. I prefer a hammer drill, and the reason why is because of the RPMs that come out of the drill. It's a lot faster of a drill. You'll get things done a lot faster with the drill. I also like these wheels a lot better. Some people like to use a grinder. I don't like the way that the grinder actually grinds and cuts. I mean, granted, you're never going to really see the blades, but plus on top of it, if you don't know what you're doing with a grinder, you can screw up a blade really fast. This takes a little while longer, and it just gives you a nicer finish, in my opinion. Some people will argue that the grinder will give it sharper. I haven't really seen much of a sharper edge from a grinder than from one of these. So I prefer just to use these, especially with the hammer drill. You're not going to get much sharper, and you need a torque wrench. I've always kept this cover on. I've had this thing for years and years, and for some reason I just take the paper cover off and I keep slipping it right back on when I'm done. But I got a 1/2-inch torque wrench. We'll use our impact socket on this. I need it to set at 70 foot-pounds in order to get that back on. It's going to be different for every single mower. For the Bunton, I couldn't find an exact number, so I found a similar type of mower and looked up a few of them, and roughly about 70 foot-pounds should be good for this mower. But before we get started on deck day, let me take you around the Bunton and show you some of the things I did, well, without you. Okay, so we're set here with the Bunton mower. Now let's get in closer. So as you can see, we now have a new yoke over here. That's that area going down, a new yoke arm. This was a real big pain. The reason why is, if you look at the old yoke, it just started falling to pieces as I was taking bolts out. Now, the one bolt that would hold, that was a real big pain. And there it is. So I ended up breaking it. If you look at the head of this one, you'll see kind of why. I couldn't really grab it. It's kind of flattened out on that one side. So what I did is I pulled these suckers out. These are great. Even guys that are all crazy about hating Pittsburgh tools love these bolt extractors. I used a 13mm, it's probably a 1/2-inch size head. I don't have metrics, or all I have is the metrics. I don't have the standards. But even the guys who are all crazy about Snap-on or any of those high-quality tools will tell you this is the one thing you go to Harbor Freight to buy. They never put them on sale. Never, because this is probably one of their more popular items. And they work very, very well. As you can see what that head looked like, and that's what I used it on. I put it on a breaker bar, and I broke the head clear off. So now I had this stud sitting in there. And then the stud wouldn't loosen. I could like give it a quarter of a turn and then it would just tighten right back up again. So what I found out is I could tighten it and it would keep going in the tighten phase. So I tightened it as much as I could with some pliers and then went to the other side of the deck and kept on tightening it so it would go through the nut that's welded to the deck, and that's how I pulled that sucker out. Yeah, that was fun. So we now have matching yoke arms. The yokes don't quite match. That other one will probably be painted the JD green when I get around to it. But right now I need to get a moving mower, and that's what is important about deck day, was so that we can actually get this mower in its final case, sirrah, sirrah. So, dealing with the engine here, I have officially completed the Choke-O-Matic. We got the little bar in that we needed, and then it turns out I needed this as well. So I'm kind of glad I went with the used $15 one instead of just buying this little wire for $10 brand new. So I ended up having to put in, this whole assembly is not necessarily new, but it's used, it's new to this mower. So we now have a Choke-O-Matic, as well as, if you haven't noticed, we got the fenders put back on, looking sharp in that JD green. So basically, and I was just talking to a friend of mine about this and showing him some pictures, and he said, all you really got to do is take care of the deck and it'll actually look really nice. And that's true. I mean, we still got to do the handles and underneath the engine and things like that, but overall, all we really have to take care of is the deck, and it would actually look pretty halfway decent. Another thing that I did, we put on a new choke cable, and this was part of the Choke-O-Matic thing, because this is how the Choke-O-Matic works. It's now choked, as well as at full throttle. You pull it up a little bit, it's still at full throttle, but it's not choked so much. And then you can take down the throttle until it hits the stop, which is the ground out. So that is the new choke cable and lever over here. I went with this lever because, from what I can tell from the parts diagram, this was the style that it was originally connected to this engine. And for $6-7 I think it was, it just made sense to go ahead and try to get the original style. It's an Arnold choke cable. Works very well. The other thing I did is, if you haven't noticed, is I had a little hole there. This Toro keeps getting in the way. So I had a little hole there, and I found a normal, or a stop switch there that's tethered, just like the other one, except that one fits in that hole. And what's nice about this one is it's normal open and normal close, depending on how you plug in the wires. So right now we have it set up as normal open, so because we are using the ground out system as opposed to the ignition system, because there is no real electrical ignition system on this. Except unless you can make a stretch about the magneto and stuff being electrical ignition. That's really what they actually call it. But yeah, so that's the work on the Bunton in a nutshell. We did get the new belt in. That's on there. Everything seems to be running pretty smoothly. The only thing we have left to do is blades, and I also want to get an hour meter on it, which might come up at the later in the back of this episode of Deck Day. So, yeah, I've been working on the Toro here. I've been going all out. I got the matching colored duct tape to fix the seat and the matching colored duct tape to fix the hood. Now, this Toro is actually, well, this is more my style of repair than what we're doing here with the Bunton. But, without further ado, let me back up, and you can get a full-on view if I don't trip over something first. Yeah, the garage is getting a little messy. So, this is the Bunton as it sits, as it looks right now. We're going to take care of the blades, and it'll be ready to mow. And we're also probably going to do in this episode the hour meter. I put this cover on wrong, so we're going to put the hour meter actually underneath this cover, just because I got to take this off anyways, and put it on correctly. And I'll be able to show you how to do that. It's really simple. It's wire, it's electrical tape. It's, I think this one uses Velcro to stick on. So it's a really simple fix. But without further ado, you make sure you got me here. Hi, without further ado, it's deck day! Alright, it's deck day, and we're working on getting the Bunton buttoned up. So like I was saying, you need some safety equipment. One is safety glasses. I put on my prescription glasses. And you want to get some good solid gloves, something that a lawnmower blade, if you slip, won't necessarily go through. So you want some good solid gloves. So without further ado, let's get under the deck. So what we have here is your typical underside of a walk-behind mower. I was telling you what you need is something for the blades to hold them. A lot of people will use, oh, there went my light. A lot of people use 2x4s. I've got this little fancy clamp thing. And you just put that on there like so and tighten it down. Now, this is going to get kind of tricky. I don't know which way to put the blades on, or which way the bolt for the blades go. So I'm going to have to try spinning it. Might have to try spinning it both ways if I don't get it wrong the first time. So I got the air hose. I'm expecting the air compressor to go off because, well, the air compressor I have is just about slightly big enough for an impact. Go, we got that connected. Impact sockets on. Let's pop on our gloves and get under there and get to cranking. We got the impact set to reverse, which hopefully they're not left-hand thread. All depends on which way the blade's spinning. And I might actually have this set wrong. One thing to note, you're going to hear me over the air compressor. I've already disconnected the spark plug so it won't start unexpectedly. Now, one thing to note, when you're using an impact and it cycles off like that, or on like that, the air compressor, you kind of want to wait until it cycles off again to start going at it again. I might have to bring out the big compressor. We're having all kinds of fun over here, isn't it? It's deck day. One of the things to note too is if you can help it, you don't want to climb underneath the deck. And I lost the clamp. Because if this thing slips, you don't want to be underneath it. Oh, look at that. Apparently I should have gotten a bigger compressor out. You might be asking what size compressor I'm using. Well, I'm using an 11-gallon compressor. I mean, if you're using an impact, that's about the minimum you want to use. It still doesn't work very good. However, now that we got that all nice and loose, spindle rolls freely. Sure, you've got these spacers in there, and you want to make sure you get all those spacers right. You want to set them down in a way so you know exactly how they're supposed to go. And remember that they're set down that particular way. This is actually the bolt. This is weird. Usually it's a smaller bolt that just holds the blade onto the spindle. This goes directly through. I've never seen that before. Have a label on here. Might be able to get a part number off that. We'll see. But blades off. A couple things you want to do underneath the deck. Thank you. A couple things we want to do underneath the deck. We're going to go grab a scraper, scrape all this crud off of it. And while we're under here, there's a grease fitting right up here. So we're going to get some light on it. There we go. We're going to grease that up too once we, probably wait until we get the blade back on to grease that up. But other than that, just so everything's in place, that's pretty much all that's left to do underneath here is scrape off the crap and then get to the other side. Now that I know how this blade actually comes off, the other side should be pretty easy.
Ba ba
Well, everything looks good. Let's grab this blade. We don't need to be on the floor for this, and we can go sharpen it up. Alright, so what you want to do is secure the blade into something like a bench vise. You also want to make sure this beveled edge is out away from you. And the reason why is because of the way of the wheel. It's this grinding part. This is the part that sharpens, not that, not the plastic. And when you do that, like I said, you just stick it in your drill, pick your forward or backwards, and let it rip. Now, sometimes you gotta be careful. You can't do this too frequently, but just to kind of clean it up off the back. Just kind of trying to get some of those burrs off. You don't want to bevel the back side. And there's a lot of nicks and breaks in this particular blade. Ultimately, see if we can get it in close, you'll spend a lot of time trying to take all of that out. It doesn't really hurt the performance too much as long as it's not too bad. You do want to try to get them out, but those are pretty deep, and you're probably not going to be able to get those out without taking off a good amount of the blade. But, and of course the other side doesn't have any of the nicks, a little bit in the end, but yeah, this side actually still had some paint on this beveled edge. So I know this thing has never been sharpened. So we're going to take this, we're going to polish this side up, flip it around in the vise, polish this side up. Hopefully we take about the same amount off. We're going to balance it, make sure. And then it's just time to do basically the exact same thing with the other blade. Okay, so it looks like I got to take a little more off of this. However, I've worn out this particular wheel. It's not grinding much. So we're going to go get the new wheel on there and finish this up. When you get a new wheel, it's a little tricky. It wants to grab really well, so you're going to have to roll it around. Sharp. So we then need to take our balancer, set it on a flat level surface. That looks flat and level enough. Pop it in there. Make sure the blade sits flat and level. Actually, for the first try, that's really good. This side seems to be a little on the heavy side. So we're going to pop that side back in here, take a little bit off, and then we'll test it again. So one of the things to note when you put this on, you want to make sure these wings go up. That actually throws the grass back up after it gets cut into the deck, so it can get mulched up some more. That's the mulching mechanism. So you want to make sure those wings go up when you put the blade on. You don't want the wings down. You want them up. Remember our spacers? I told you, stack them. You know exactly how they go. Typically, we wouldn't have this long of a shaft to go straight through it. It's kind of interesting that Bunton designed it that way. And I'm just going to kind of tighten this up a little bit using a ratchet and the breaker bar for right now. And when I mentioned torque, this said I went through a lot of different ones, and roughly about 70 is what I have deducted should be about what it should be. I mean, this torque does not have to be exact, but you're trying to make sure. And if you look, I don't know if you can see this on the handle or not, but there's little markings there, and you bring this up to where you need it. So I have that set to 70, and there'll be a little click when it hits where it's supposed to be. So if we're really quiet, you might be able to hear it. Okay, I might need to get the breaker bar on the other side. Harbor Freight, you've done me good so far. And there's our 70 pounds. So this should be now tight enough where it's not going to come flying off the mower. It's not going to wobble. It's nice, good, and solid. We got the deck all cleaned up. And there's just one more thing to take care of. That little grease fitting. All the way up on the top there. I probably should take the hood off because I don't know where this grease is going to come out. This does seem to be taking a whole lot of grease. Okay. Oh, I've seen it. One more pump. It's coming out right here on the bottom. That was a whole lot of grease. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take care of the next side. It's basically just the same as this side, only on the other side. And the process is exactly the same. I can get that nut that I lost in the wheel without, looking like an idiot on camera. And then we'll move on to putting the hour meter onto it to really, finish this job up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put the hour meter on. This is the final step before it's really ready to mow. We've already got the spark plug wire taken off. What I'm going to do is actually run it underneath this cover. Typically I would just connect it outside of the cover right here and just run it on the outside of the cover. But honestly, I have to take this cover off anyways and fix it, so I might as well get fancy with it. The first thing you want to do is mount the meter wherever you want it up top. I have mine put right here, and I'm going to run the wire down through this side. There's just a lot of business going on over here between the fuel line and the throttle cable and that shut-off, emergency shut-off switch. That, I got a nut stuck in there. There we go. That I want to run it on the opposite side. It's actually a pretty simple fix. Nothing to really be crazy discouraged with or worrisome about. I've done it on a number of other mowers. And it's worked the first time every single time. Now that I've said that, it won't work properly the first time this time around. Just watch. That's just the way that things happen over here in the Miss Hydraulic Garages. As soon as you get confident about something, it likes to tell you otherwise. So we have the cable running through here. We're going to bring this down here. I do want to leave a little bit of slack up near the top, just so I have something to play with later on. As well as down here on the bottom, in case I do need to reroute or readjust this because it's getting in the way. Up around here, and you want to actually get pretty close to the spark plug. You want to wrap it 5 to 6 times. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, Shoot, going to be pretty much using up all of the cable. And now I have to sit here and hold this. When I looked at where I put the zip tie that it came with. Then you just want to go ahead and zip tie these off together. And this is where the instructions end. We're going to do a little bit more for it. What I'm going to do is we're going to get some electrical tape, tape that together too. But that ultimately is how they tell you to put it on. This will actually help hold it in place, and I just lost the zip tie. That's one of the reasons why I don't like those zip ties. You don't stay. Whereas the electrical tape, that'll stay all day long. I have to do this right after I do all of its initial maintenance, because I'll put a new plug in, change the oil, sharpen the blades, you know, everything that we've done, put a new fuel filter in. And then I have a really good status for the maintenance. Everything, when it hits 25 hours, I know to do the blades. Once it hits 50 hours, that's when a lot of the other stuff is going to get taken care of. And depending on when what the maintenance schedule is on the machine. Lined up really well too. Guess that means I got it on right. I use this particular ratchet, and the reason why is the handle turns, which in turn goes through here and turns the nut. I got a lot of really tight spots, unlike this particular one, but that I gotta hit. Particularly back here. So that becomes really useful. And just tie it down. And the hour meter, all we gotta do is test it, which is just basically starting it and setting it to a timer and make sure that the minutes tick down the same with the timer, or at least pretty darn close. You don't necessarily need to be exact. And we just got to get this thing out too and test it, make sure everything's running and moving smoothly. We're going to do that. We've got to get the TOR out of the way. I probably should clean up this floor first too. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. So, this rock salt in the tires? Glass or something. It's salt. Yeah, it's salt. So I just literally put the thing away from its test drive, and the Bunton was rolling and moving great. Heard a lot of great things about these Briggs & Stratton flatheads. Best engine you'll buy. They'll last you forever. Well, let's put it this way. Rest in peace, Briggs & Stratton flathead. I don't know if you can see this very well. There's the back cylinder wall. There's the cylinder through it. Yeah, the engine's completely toast now. Looks like the Bunton got me on this one. So, here's my big decision. Do I cut my losses? Or do I keep trucking on with the Bunton? Haven't decided yet.